Today I will be reviewing our lesson on the rise of Nazism. I will be going over all steps of the lesson so that you will understand your role as well as the student's role for a complete lesson for one session. Our learning target is I can explain the rise of Nazism, including pre-existing prejudices, the use of propaganda, and events which resulted in the Holocaust. This is our state standard as well as our Gwinnett County Public School System AKS 30B. We start with an illustrated vocabulary. For the purposes of this presentation, I am using PowerPoint, but it will be shared with you via Google Slides, at which point you can click the hyperlinks and open up the attached documents. But for the purposes, again, of this presentation, I have examples of the documents embedded so that you can have a better understanding of what you'll be interacting with. So our first activity again is the illustrated vocabulary. The directions are telling you to cut apart each picture, definition, and term, and then it gives you some different ways you can interact with this, doing different rounds, ways that you can differentiate this based on your particular group of students. I know that this lesson will be administered to Gen Ed, to gifted, to SPED, and to EL students. So however you need to adapt this particular activity to your students, it is very flexible and can be used in the best way that suits your students. So just some examples. This is what it looks like. Very nicely, Miss Blagg in our library will laminate these for you so that you can have them for next year if you choose to as well. All right, our second part will be our mini lesson, and it's a would you rather. So when I do would you rathers, I typically give students a certain amount of time to think about the reason for their answer. Quite often they act very quickly and just pick one or the other, but I want them to really give some thought to their actions in regards to this. So one would you rather be silent and protect yourself and your family from harm? Two, would you rather be a leader of a resistance movement, even though it might put you in danger? So I want students to be prepared when they're giving me an answer of one or two as to why they chose that. Sometimes one might be kind of obvious. You don't want your family to be in harm, but there may be some other background things in the student's particular experience that they may choose that answer. So I will call on a few students to kind of gauge where their thinking is in regards to this before we move on. And then the group activity is answering the question of how can conflict cause change. So this is a county lesson that we're adapting for our school. So the students are asked to read this introduction to the Jewish family here in this photo, so that as they move on with the lesson, they kind of have some background. Again, you can differentiate this however you need to. For your gifted students or Gen Ed students on a high reading level, they can read it independently. I typically pair together, since I have MLs, a strong reader with readers who are not so strong, and I have them take turns. If you're doing SPED, you might want to read it out loud. If you have adaptive students, you might need to have the device read it to them. Once they've read that background, they're going to look at the photographs and answer the picture questions that go along with each picture. Student one will have one photograph, student two will have the second one, and student three will have the third one. They'll be given a brief amount of time to all answer question one. Then they will swap papers, so everyone has something different. They'll be given a certain amount of time to answer question two, and then the same thing with question three. They will briefly discuss their answers, and then they will choose a leader who can discuss with the class kind of what they came up with, and using the question stems, provide a bit of insight as to what they were able to determine from doing that exercise. And finally, they wrap up with a ticket out the door, answering these three questions. Again, in my classroom, I have the stoplight kind of board posted with red, yellow, and green based on their level of knowledge and understanding of the lesson as we end.